All right, nerds, I have the one and only Andrew MF Yang back in the nerd zone. I think it's been 3 years since the first time we had Andrew on the show, and we've all been through a lot together and seen a lot, and now he's here back to talk about his new book, The Last Election, which I'm about like a third of the way through. It's pretty good, I have to admit. Not to insult you, Andrew. I'm sure it was going to be good, but it was. I'm pleased with it. How are you doing, man? And hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds. It's great to be here, Tom. Dude, I get it, man. Because one of the things I say to myself this week is that if someone I really liked and respected wrote a novel, I may or may not, like buy it. And if I did buy it, my expectations would be all over the map. So I'm glad you enjoy it. And I'm not surprised that you weren't certain you'd enjoy it. And I take zero offense because novels are a totally different beast.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, maybe in the Yang Gang, like I think we're more nonfiction type people.
Dude,
So
totally. I know the
yeah.
demographics. And this is one of the reasons why I would hold any kind of judgment on anyone is that I'm not really in the novel buying audience either. Most adult men very seldom read novels. Most adult men read nonfiction.
Yeah. Now, what's nice about the book so far is there is like this sprinkle of quasi nonfiction in that there's these details about how campaigns are run that you're like, I bet that was inspired by things he's seen.
Yeah.
And then of course there's some flourishes around the candidates' previous activities and socializing behaviors, and I'm like, I don't know. That sounds like maybe that's a little bit more of a fictional character. So it's kind of fun to go back and forth between the two. In fact, I think as I was reading the book, I had to let go of trying to reverse engineer what's Andrew and what isn't, and just enjoy the novel for what it is because it goes in interesting directions. So good work, man. Congrats.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of details that are definitely born of my experience, but there's a lot of shit that is not me. And
There's no
I mean,
dungeons.
yeah, and there were a few humans that we were working with. I've already said it in other contexts, but there's some Mark Cuban, some me, and then some Dan
Yeah.
Gilbert, all kind of mishmashed,
Yeah.
and then a half dozen other humans. So it's certainly not literal in the sense of there's like a person who did all the things.
There's definitely some like Easter eggs, like the we're here to un-F you, and there's some UBI, and there's like a third party. So there's some. It's just enough that you're like, oh, okay, yeah. I can identify with some of this, and then there's some that's just new and interesting. And so, how did you decide to do this book? This is different than the other ones you had done. What was the motivation?
What's funny is the last two books I've written, I ended up spending years of my life trying to actualize. The War on Normal People, which I'm to imagine most of your audience has read. It was about UBI automation and how the heck we can humanize the economy. And so I ran for president on that, and I said, okay, let's make that happen. And then when I was writing forward, and it said at the end, hey, you need an independent political movement to do this, and I will start that movement. And here it is, it's forwardparty.com. And when I was writing those words, I was like, oh shit, I think I just signed up to do something for the next X years of my life. So then after that, it's like, how can we get the message out in new ways, maybe reach different people who didn't give a shit about, nonfiction books or op-eds. And also, what can I produce that's a little more fun and entertaining, different? And I couldn't bring myself to write another nonfiction book about like, here's what we should do. Cause like, I'm still working on what I, like the same stuff that, that I wrote up. And so the most compelling way to get people's attention is through story. And I'd had all these experiences that I wanted to share, and I wasn't sure how best to share them. And so from that, I ended up talking to my literary agent and then various potential collaborators And when I reached out to Steven, it was just very quick clicking. And he pretty early on was saying, look, if this is substantive, like if I can tell stories that have never been told before and share details that have never been shared, I'd be excited, and I think people would be excited to read it.
Yeah, and there's a little bonus value from the book in that if anyone's interested in how journalists work, there's kind of like behind the curtains view into how the media and journalists and news people work as well.
Yeah, and that was Steven's major impulse and contribution. And he also wanted there to be like a look. If Andrew's going to pull back the curtain, then maybe I'll do some curtain pulling too. He had some material from his nonfiction book, The Next Civil War, that he wanted to include. So it's politics, it's journalism. And I think when you're reading it, Tom, when different people read it, I mean, some of it gets pretty extreme or bleak or dark, but then some of it you're like, wait a minute, is that plausible? And unfortunately, you unpack it, you're like, yeah, I can kind of see that. Like there are a lot of elements that start stacking. But I think, at least for me too, my goal was that it rings like a version of reality in the not so distant future.
If it's any indication of the impact your book has had, it actually came up at a dinner conversation with my 15-year-old, who's I think he's pretty much going through his libertarian phase. And so he was like, oh, people should be able to donate as much as they want. They should give as much as they want. And I was like, oh, it's interesting that you bring that up, because in the last election, they talk about how there are these rules that you can only donate a maximum amount because, I guess the spirit of it is you don't want, extremely wealthy people to have undue influence, but they can give as much as they want to a PAC. And in the book, there's a part where they talk about like, well, this is how you do it. I'm going to give you someone that I work with to run your PAC. You sign up for a newsletter. We're going to talk about what states we want to target. We are not officially coordinating, but you can use that information as anyone in the public would. And I was just like thinking to myself, that is so gross, but it's probably how it works as well.
It's happening right now before our eyes with Ron Desantis. I don't know if people saw this stuff. So Ron DeSantis has $100 million in his PAC and $12 million in his campaign. So now the PAC is paying for everything. And then the PAC is putting information out saying, hey, you should do this, you should do that. It blew up in their face when they put out something like 100-page memo on debate strategy. And then because they had to put it out on the website, some enterprising journalist snapped it up and was like, here's what the PAC thinks Ron DeSantis should do. And then Ron DeSantis obviously couldn't do any of those things, because then he just literally looks like a PAC puppet, which then became a phrase in the first debate. So this stuff's very, very here and now.
What is your what's your feelings on how closely the book and some of those themes are going to be aligned with what we see next year? Like,
I think it's pretty close in many ways. One of the things I've been expressing is Cornel West is running third party. I think RFK ends up running third party Libertarian, and then and what I'm hearing is Joe Manchin's going to run. And so you have 3, 4, 5 candidates, and then that's a specific type of dynamic that our book, I think, lays out in part what that could look like.
So if enough of those other individuals run and the votes get divided up, is there a chance that no one gets to 270, and then what happens? The House picks? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's even weirder than the House picks. It's that the states get together in Congress, and then each state gets one vote.
Oh, so like Kansas has the same vote as California?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, wow, that would be interesting.
It's called the contingent election, and that's what the Constitution says if no one gets 270.
Yeah. So I got to ask you, you've run before. One could argue that if it does come down to a very Trump as he is, and we know all the limitations that he has, but then also a embattled Biden, maybe with some Hunter stuff and maybe some health matters, but not enough for him to completely take himself off the ticket. And it's like, oh my God, we may have Trump again. Would you consider like thinking like, should I throw my hat in the ring to save the
I'm an
country?
anyone but Trump guy.
Yeah.
The problem, Tom. All right, here's the breakdown. If you have Trump and you have, let's say, Biden and then a couple of the other elements.
Yeah.
So people have asked me, hey, how can you keep things from going to Trump, which I think should be the priority. I see the dangers as very asymmetrical. Let's say, like I see Trump as just like catastrophic and unacceptable, and then everyone else is, like some degree of I mean, I'm not thrilled about some of the other possibilities, but at least I'll be able to sleep at night. So the best way to help would not be to have someone like me run. The best way to help would be just to run a crazy, rancid, white nationalist, insane person, and then have them absorb 2 or 3 points from Trump. Now, when I suggest this, people say interesting, but then no one wants to touch that with the 12-foot pole because of American life now. It's like, I'm running this white nationalist, and everyone will be like, you're terrible, and be like, well, I'm kind of trying to save the country, but whatever. All right, so that's number one. Number two, about 100,000 Americans should move to the 4 or 5 swing states. If you do the math on it, it actually makes perfect sense. Now, no one wants to touch that with a 10-foot pole either, because it seems like nefarious, even though there's absolutely nothing wrong with Americans moving across state lines and doing something. So after people get past those two plans, then I say we should rally independent swing voters in the 4 or 5 key swing states and say to them, look, you don't love either side, but let's go for whichever team is going to move to nonpartisan primaries and not fight ranked choice voting and open up the system. And so that's relatively reasonable. That's, by the way, a fair description of what I'll be doing. If you have someone like me run, I probably elevate the chances of Trump winning because my support base tends to skew young. It tends to skew, across demographics. So my running is not helpful.
And so tell us more about that third option where you go to some of the swing states and you rally the independent voters to throw their weight behind the team that's going to be open to those reforms. What if neither team is open to those reforms?
Well, then maybe you can't make a legitimate case to your folks and be like, hey, like this team is preferable to that team. But I think in that situation, you'd get a concession. Here's a direct concession that I think is totally reasonable. There might be a ballot initiative in Arizona to get rid of primaries, just like in Nevada in 22. And so if you were to say to the Democrats, just stand down and do not get in the way of that ballot initiative, I mean, that's like a very significant step forward for Americans if you get rid of primaries in Arizona, because I mean, that's like, it's an important state, and you have Arizona and Nevada and Alaska and Maine. So that would be a very real concession. And if you got that, then you could say, look, guys, like, you might not love either team, but we're going to open up the system, and this is the best way how.
So who would need to be on the other side of that negotiation? Is it like the state party leadership? And I guess the top of the ticket would kind of bless it as well. Is that how it would work? Or
I mean, like, it's true. Like, who would be able to control what happens at the state party level? The state parties themselves, but probably the DNC. You talk to the DNC and say, hey, guys, you don't directly control the state party, but if you call a state party and say, get out of the way of this initiative, they'd probably listen because, and especially if, by the way, none of this stuff's going to be secret. It's just going to be very transparent what we're doing.
Yeah, it does require the state leadership to effectively give up some power that they currently have. I mean, once it's like open and if it's ranked choice, like they can't pick or influence the winner. nearly as much. And I realize that's why we're asking
Point.
for it. But, on the other side, it's like, well, what do I get? And why should I give up this very influential position I have? And they might, in their heart of hearts, feel like they know what's best for the country, and it's better for them to guide the outcomes.
Well, that's just one sample concession that I think is pretty reasonable. But if it really is as razor thin as we think, I mean, there are only 8% of voters that are genuine swing voters, and if we have a list of 500,000 swing voters in Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Wisconsin, PA, who are all like, legitimately like, hey, we will vote for whichever side makes real concessions. I think we got a pretty good case because there aren't that many other factors in this race, honestly. I mean, like it's 8% of voters, even like 1% to 2% of voters in those 5 states. Everything else, by the way, I think we all know it's a waste of time. I mean, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
So if that's the case, then should we be expecting to see, I guess, the Forward Party starting to organize and amass this critical kind of mass of independent voters in these key states and ask for volunteers to help, canvass and get them to, sign a petition or agree to pledge, to support whichever party agrees to these concessions? Or
yeah, man, I'm heading to Arizona and Nevada in the next 4 weeks, and we have operations in, by the way, all these states already. I mean, you look up like PA. I'm also going to Pennsylvania this month. So it's Pennsylvania, it's Arizona, it's Nevada, it's Georgia, it's Wisconsin. Those are the 5 states. We have operations in all of those states, but very strong operations in 3 of them. And so, yeah, it's going to be go time and grow time.
Yeah. And so of all the things that the Forward Party is doing, it sounds like that'll be one of the, if not the top priority, or what else is new in the Forward Party right now?
So that's going to be the 2024 national presidential approach. There are going to be a bunch of other races we get involved with. I'll give one example that people probably know. Adam Frisch versus Lauren Boebert. Adam's a candidate that we backed before anyone was paying attention.
Yeah.
And so we're going to back him again. There's going to be a host of candidates around the country that we're excited about. And then we're going to be trying to get on the ballot in various states, including Colorado, that is ramping up. We have 36 elected officials now affiliated with Forward. We're going to be signing up, I think, dozens or even hundreds more. So there's a lot of progress that can be made on multiple fronts. But we do need to do something in the presidential that makes sense and could be helpful. I think the independent swing voter plan is really better than just about anything else I've heard, because like other people, I don't know what the hell you're doing. I mean, like spending money in all these other ways. It's like, look, guys, nothing matters except for 250,000 or so voters in 5 states.
So is this the argument of why you wouldn't run being like, hey, you expect it might help Trump even more? Would that apply to no labels? Like, do you think if they put forward a candidate that's, like a Manchin, who does that help? Because I'm curious what you think of what they're doing. No labels.
The numbers I have seen suggest that most any of the people that's been put out there under no labels, if they run, it will increase the chances of Trump winning. Those are the numbers I've seen.
Now, one thing that you said when you ran the first time was that Trump was a symptom. But I think now, and I tended to agree with that, and he kind of manipulated and took advantage of like people's anxiety and anger and fear. But now I actually think he's not just a symptom. Like he's an active force for not good. What's your take on him these days?
Well, he's a symptom in the sense that only a sick country produces him as your leader. But to your point, now he's also a disease. He's going around and infecting others. So it's very, very serious. And Not like I'm trying. I mean, inoculating us fully against the disease is not possible. I will suggest that one way to help defend against the disease is just giving them a better opponent. I feel like if there's one candidate that could easily lose to, well, there are a couple. I mean, I think Kamala loses to Trump. I think, unfortunately, Joe Biden, people think he's strong against Trump. It's like, is he really? I mean, there are like a lot of folks I know who do not want to vote for Joe Biden. And when you ask them, that they will bring up just his age. And there's a significant part of me that thinks that's very, very legitimate. I mean, 73% of Americans are concerned about it. So I would love to see a candidate against Trump that takes the age thing off the table. And I think we'd have a better chance of not having a Trump sequel. Fight the disease. But yeah, so Trump has gone from symptom to disease. I'd agree.
Now with Joe, I've heard talk of people speculating like, hey, he doesn't have a huge campaign team right now. Maybe there's some filings that he hasn't fully submitted yet. He may have his hands full with like all the Hunter stuff. He probably does feel older than he did a few years ago. Maybe he won't run again. Do you think there's a chance that he steps aside and says, hey, look, I think it's time to pass the baton. I'm really proud of what I've done, but it's time for a new generation kind of thing?
Yeah, I've heard some of those things too. If that were to happen, it would happen somewhere between March and July of next year, because the primary voting happens in February, and then they have to say, hey, I won. And then the convention is in August. So you have to come together and say, hey, this is our ticket, sometime before August. There is some scuttlebutt that he could step aside. And then, now, by the way, in the process I'm describing, there's not really a vote except for the DNC members and delegates. And that's one reason why this two-party system is so dark, is that we think it's like, oh, we're electing these leaders. It's like, no, who's actually electing the leaders? The DNC delegates. They're coming together and they have a convention and say, here's our ticket. And this time there's not going to be a vote at all, except like, ordinary humans and Americans. I mean, it's just going to be, oh, Joe steps aside. Hey, here we go. And then, you'll see like all the stories being like, oh, this person's always been what we needed. So it's now there's a chance of that. It really all comes down to Joe and Jill Biden. It's the way these decisions are made, these machines work, is that everyone's just going to defer to Joe until he just says, all right, screw it, I'm not doing it. And then there'll be a whole set of changes, but we don't know. If it happens, it's between March and July.
I know a lot of people are not excited about Joe. I am not either. But I am grateful that he won last time, and that, we did get infrastructure, Medicare, negotiated drug pricing, got out of Afghanistan, CHIPS Act. Like he did a lot. And I do believe he would do the right thing for the country. Like maybe like more so than many other politicians. I feel like he would respond to the like, well, what's the right thing, Joe, kind of thing. And the right thing is for him probably to step aside before the primaries, so we don't have a bunch of party insiders picking, and the people can pick their nominee.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I would tend to agree with you. I mean, if it was an ideal situation, you'd be like, hey, guys, have a real process right now.
Yeah.
If we had a real process right now, then you'd see Governor Newsom and Pritzker and Whitmer and some of the candidates from the last cycle all jump in, and then that would be healthy and fine. That would be great. But I don't think that's the thing. I think they're going to wait until after the primaries wrapped up, and then, yeah, people aren't going to touch it. Human hands and human votes aren't going to touch it. Like the DNC doesn't really care about that stuff.
Yeah. Which will be then it'll be another case of like, oh, well, I'm definitely not going to vote for Trump, so I'll just take whoever
they give us. I mean, again, and the problems with the two-party system are just getting more and more blatant and manifest. It's like, I mean, we live in something of a faux democracy at this point.
Yeah. Just for giggles, if Biden today announced that he wasn't going to run and it was open season, anyone could jump in, and a bunch of them did. Like, who do you think would be most likely picked by the primary voters, and who would you like to see?
I mean, that would be a fun process, man.
Yeah.
Because like I've seen some of the numbers. I mean, in that juncture, Kamala definitely runs. Some other folks from last time, Amy Klobuchar runs. Like I would think Warren and Pete would run. So it would be, and then the governors, and everyone would pile in.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, one of the reasons why I don't think we're going to see anything like this is that instead it's going to be like, here it is, like the Democrats for whatever reason have referred to a competitive race as chaos, and I'm just like, I mean, shit, like shouldn't people be able to choose? I mean,
Yeah.
but who would I like in that process? I will say, I don't think it's actually anyone from 2020. I think America at this point would want one of the governors.
Like a Whitmer or a Newsom? Who
I
would you
think
think?
Whitmer, Newsom, Pritzker, Murphy, one
Yeah.
of those four would be like one of the best bets.
And I would assume in that scenario that Kamala is automatic VP. Like, I think it would be kind of delicate if she were completely removed from the ticket, right? Or do you think it would be completely
In
open?
which scenario, the Joe steps aside move?
Yeah. That Joseph's aside, then it's like anyone, it's a free for all. I would assume that whoever wins, which I don't think would be Kamala, would be kind of compelled to pick her as VP or not? No.
Oh my God! If you had a competitive process and then someone emerges, let's say like Gretchen Whitmer, then she's gonna pick whoever the heck she wants. That like I thought. So this is the other very very delicate thing, a problem, is that let's say Joe steps aside late in the process, and it's just the DNC coming together and being like, all right, who are we gonna pick? Which, by the way, I think is the most. So here's the order of likelihood, in my opinion.
Okay.
Joe runs the whole way through, despite everything.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
I think that's the most likely. The
Mm-hmm.
second most likely is Joe steps aside between March and July. The DNC says, "Hey, here's our new nominee,"
Mm-hmm.
and as part of the, "Hey, here's our new nominee," it's like, here's their vice presidential candidate. And in that juncture, the tough part is that there's a lot of pressure on them to say, "Well, isn't it naturally Kamala's turn?" No one wants Kamala at the top of the ticket. The problem for you, what you're saying is like, should she be VP again? And they have numbers that say if they just don't have Kamala on either slot 1 or slot 2, that it hurts them with black women voters significantly. So they're in a bind. But I think in this scenario, maybe you have like Governor Whitmer 1, and then like Kamala 2, or I mean, like but I mean, that ticket people may or may not like. I think there's some restriction that you can't have two from the same state, so it can't be a Newsom Kamala thing. That'd actually be a great excuse to remove Kamala. Is that if you have Gavin Newsom, then it's like, well, you can't have Kamala, like, tough on us. Oh well, and then they
I didn't know
you
there
know
was such a rule that they couldn't be from the same state.
I believe there may be. It might be,
Wow.
an informal party rule or something.
Hmm.
But who's also a dark horse in all of these discussions? Someone who everyone is really, really high on in the Democratic Party is Gina Raimondo, who's the governor of Rhode Island. People really, really dig and respect Gina Raimondo, and I think you could easily see her. I'll tell you, like, Gina Raimondo would be a phenomenal VP pick from the perspective of the DNC, and even like I actually respect Gina Raimondo more than I respect most other people in political life. So keep an eye out for Gina, because she's very, very popular in the Democratic leadership.
Well, I'll have to do some research. What is it about her that kind of impresses you?
Oh, so she's been like a genuine leader, operator, manager, effective. She's a business type. She's not like a person who will actually think that, hey, I did this political this or press that and thinks it matters. She's not one of those people. She's like, okay, like how can I actually get real things done? And she doesn't have an enormous ego relative to some of these other folks. Like a lot of these political figures aren't great operator types. Gina comes from a business background. She's actually competent.
That sounds like someone that would do great in the White House, but I wonder how she would do in a campaign, like, because it's like a performative art, right?
I haven't really seen her in that context, but I have a feeling she'd come across as just very smart and competent, because she actually is smart and competent. It's a lot easier to come across as smart and competent if you are those things.
Yeah, speaking of smart and competent, hats off to Senator Romney, who just announced that he's not going to run for re-election, and he said, "Hey, I'll be in my mid-80s. Like, it's time for other people to show up."
Geez, man, I wish that Dianne Feinstein and Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden all got that memo.
Yeah, I agree. I mean Pelosi too. Like, it's crazy.
Oh, Pelosi, forgot that one.
Yeah, in my district, my congressional representative, she was sworn in with Bill Clinton. I mean, she's been there forever, just forever.
What's funny is Pelosi doesn't strike me as quite as egregious for some reason, just because it's only a 2-year term. But it's the same. I mean, she got an 8 handle. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way these things work, like a 2-year term, if you're an incumbent, it's practically like a lifetime appointment.
I mean, she can just keep the office as long as she keeps running.
Yeah.
But I just yeah. But so I should lump her in with the same set of octogenarians.
Yeah. I have some questions. I know we're running short on time, so I have some questions in the chat that I wanted to hit with you.
I'm having so much fun, man. Let's go a little long.
I love it. Like old times. So Soldier One, who's a channel member, says, if you had to bet, what do you think the world 100 years from now looks like? Better or worse?
The first word that pops into my mind is worse.
The candidate of doom.
I mean, I feel bad saying that, because I, like to be more optimistic. I mean, I've got kids and stuff, but I mean, there are going to be some major challenges for sure.
Yeah. What do you think will be the worst? Is it going to be the state of politics, or the state of like the planet, or poverty? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a much tougher physical environment, and then the resources to lead a good life are going to be competed for, shall we say. That they're going to be different groups of people saying, "Ooh, I really want that," and so the folks that have access to like great air, water, land, homes, etc., will be like, "Oh, wait a minute! Like, you want my stuff?" Like let's make sure that it's mine and not yours. So you'll wind up with some fairly dystopian enforcement measures or mechanisms, I think. I think that's the way we're generally trending.
Yeah. It just reminds me with the physical stuff and people battling over like water and whatnot. Did you hear, I'm guessing you saw the Republican primary debate, and Vivek was saying that more people have died due to climate change policies than climate. And it's interesting, like, that guy is catching like interest in the Republican Party. And if Trump suddenly had to step aside for health reasons or whatever, I could see him doing all right. I mean, he's kind of broken through a little bit. What do you think of Vivek?
Vivek's a very, very strong communicator, and he's quick on his feet. He's an athlete. It's a performer type, and he's got an anti-institutional energy that I think works really, really well with the Republican base. Yeah,
totally. What? And then I think I heard you say that you're not as convinced that Nikki Haley, she has a high ceiling. You don't think she might be the new DeSantis in terms of like the establishment non-Trump?
I think she could be the new DeSantis. Like my estimation of both her chances and her electability went up after the last debate. Yeah. And then the polls came out saying that she beats Joe Biden by 6. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're Republicans who are sensible, it's like, Trump. Though a lot of Republicans think Trump will beat Biden because they just can't imagine anyone voting for Joe Biden. So the electability stuff doesn't work as well on them because they're like, oh, Trump will whip Joe Biden, just like the rest of it. But there's some subset of Republicans who looked at the numbers and actually, like we'll see Nikki Haley is a very appealing option. I talk to people who are backing Nikki Haley right now.
Yeah. She reminds me of like the pre-Trump kind of Republican, like, kind of like Christie. Like, I can kind of find them like fairly reasonable, but I worry that they'll never break through in this current party energy. AM has a question for you about the Forward Party, saying, hey, there have been videos that getting some traction that are attacking the Forward Party and you. From people with similar ideals. Like, what's your read on how the Forward Party has been, like how it's landed, and what can people do, and what do you think should be done to help the Forward Party reach more people?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the fact that we now have 36 aligned elected officials. I'm heading to PA for another announcement next week, and what we have to do is just build. I mean, there's a lot of negativity, just in general, a lot of skepticism, a lot of dubiousness, because everyone at this point is like, oh, like what's someone doing? It's like, oh, here's why it's wrong. Here's why it doesn't work. But then if you just keep on building and like 6, 12, 18 months later, then people will be like, oh, they like built a thing. And there are very, very few things getting built out there right now. I mean, if you think about it, if you look around, like what is being built, So we just have to actually do the thing and build an effective set of organizations, because the National Party is 51 orgs. So you have the National Party and then you have various state parties. But I can see the progress being made, and as you make progress, then folks who are like, oh, like never work and this is why, and like corrupt, no policy, blah blah blah, and then if if you just keep on doing things, then you win. I mean, it's like, do I wish that some of these folks who are genuinely aligned like actually were a little more thoughtful and said like, wait a minute, like, okay, that's an approach. Like, let's see what we can do. But there are different folks, and I get this, and it's one reason I appreciate you too, Tom. But like, what is the way that you can get any kind of hits, traction, views, and the rest of it? And by the way, I actually fall prey to this sometimes. It is you attack, kneecap, demean, show why they're wrong. Like, those are the videos that all of us click on. And do I click on those videos too sometimes? Like, person you've heard of fucks up. It's like, oh, really? So that's just like the incentive structure.
Yeah.
Now, again, I wish that people were a little more thoughtful and like circumspect and positive, and in some cases even had a little bit more. What's the word? I don't know, like faith or trust or confidence. But we're in a mistrustful, faith-free, underconfident time. Like the thing you can be most confident at this point is if I attack someone, like it'll get some energy. But it is one of the tough things out there, really is, man. And this is one of the reasons why I'm actually really concerned about our future, is that even if you rewound 5 years ago, there was something that's like, okay, let's build stuff. Like, builder's good. And then there's a point when now trash talking has kind of taken the place of building, because what you're really trying to build is just follower count and traffic.
Yeah,
and that's not really the answer. You know what I mean? You have to like actually build a real life organization with humans that go out and do things and run for office, et cetera, et cetera.
So in the spirit of trying to be as objective as we can about the Forward Party, if you look a year ahead, like what would be some milestones or OKRs that you'd want to look at and say like, okay, yeah, we hit that. Like we're making progress here. This is happening.
Dude, that's the great thing is it's so freaking clear. It's how many states do we have ballot access and legal recognition in?
Mm-hmm.
How many elected officials align with us? How are our resources as an organization? Who are the people that are associated with us and excited about us? I mean, in the last couple months, Chris Novoselic, the rock band Nirvana, and Carrie Healy, the former lieutenant governor of Massachusetts, just joined. Jim Robinson, major venture capitalist, just joined. So, they're like pretty serious humans who are just like, you know what, this is actually the answer, is the best thing. I'm willing to put my time, energy, resources to work on it. So you look up 12 months from now, you're going to have seen growth in all those things, like we'll have ballot access in more places, more elected officials, more awesome people, more resources. Just got to grow. I mean, one of the things I say to folks, and it is kind of funny, it's a joke, I tell, is like, we're already the third biggest party in the country by resources. I mean, there's just an enormous drop off between 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
But, like we're a real thing doing things every day. And then other people would be like, oh, never worked at it on. So, okay, like point to me an example that is doing the thing bigger and better than we are. And you can't find it because it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, from your lips to God's ears, I would love to see that traction. And I've certainly have been trying to convince all my California neighbors to switch over to the Common Sense Party so that we can get some more competition here too.
You're a beautiful man, Tom. We'll have some announcements on that side too. But thank you for that. When I saw when I see someone's little membership card, it warms my heart because you get a cool membership card from the Secretary of State. And that stuff is real again, it's like there's all, that's how we're going to make things happen in real life. So thank you for being confident and actually positive about building.
Yeah, 100%. We got 4 more questions and then I'll let you go. We can bang through them real quick. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So Lou wants to know, well, which GOP candidate would you prefer to win the nomination?
Wow. So that there are several GOP presidential candidates that I would be fine with seeing win the nomination. I think Nikki Haley would make a fine president. Honestly, I mean, it's like that's, I don't know if people here, are surprised at that answer, but I think there are a lot of things to be said about Vivek. I actually kind of like Chris Christie at this point. I mean, there are like a few candidates where I'd look up and say like, they actually have a lot to offer. Unfortunately, right now, I think the odds of any of them becoming the nominee are very, very low. I think it's Trump until it's not Trump, really.
Yeah. I who is the governor, I think, of Maryland, this Hogan guy? I saw an interview with him.
Larry Hogan. He's a good dude.
Yeah, he seems super reasonable, but I can't see the current Republican Party primary voter getting excited about him.
It's why he didn't run, really.
Election. Yeah.
But he's a totally reasonable guy. I like Larry Hogan.
Yeah.
One joke I did tell is that Larry Hogan's wife is Asian. So if he ran, I could never be his running mate because you can't have 3 Asians on that stage. It does look too weird. It was just a fun visual.
Yeah, you'd have to have Evelyn hang it back or something.
It would be like, oh my God, this crew is selling the country to Asia. It'd be like,
oh God. Yeah, well, we'll cross that bridge if we get to it.
No. I mean, even I had a laugh about it when I was talking to. So Larry, actually, I mean, I was actually I had dinner.
He seems like a very reasonable guy. Yeah,
he's very reasonable. I mean, I've had dinner with a bunch of these people, honestly, and a lot of them are pretty good in that context. You're like, shit, man, you'd be good. I will say, if it ever becomes a thing, Larry Hogan is a very good guy and be a good leader.
Yeah, agree.
Also on that list, I like Chris Sununu in New Hampshire. It's just like some of the really sensible dudes had the sense to know that their stuff isn't going to fly in this Republican Party.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Robot Panda wants to know what
Oh,
new
wait,
techno.
I actually should give a shout out. You know, one of my favorite candidates in the Republican field. I really like Doug Burgum.
I was
I mean,
thinking you were going to say that.
he's
Yes.
getting no love and no play, but like Doug Burgum, I think is actually just a reasonable business dude from North Dakota.
Yes. Yes. And ran a very scaled, complex business. Was very successful. So both like governor and CEO, like there's a lot to love about him. I feel like he doesn't have like the he's not super high energy, not super charismatic on stage so yet.
Well, he's not a performer in that way, and so his
Yeah.
campaign is doing something interesting, which is they're trying to get a 3% of national poll immediately, and so they're just putting $4 million into cable. And I did a poll just came out today that didn't have him
Yeah.
at 1, so it's not working. Unfortunately, the number is wrong. It's like if you replace the 4 with 40, then maybe you could get to 3% quick.
Mm.
So that's his problem is like the national polling. Um, he can get himself up in the state polling because then you can just bombard those states. But national has been tough for him. But I mean, I wish it were otherwise. I think Doug Burgum is, I think Doug Burgum would be superior to just about all the other candidates.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's this classic like the best operators may not do as well in the candidacy part though, in the campaigning part.
Yeah, no, it's a weakness of our current system. Just
Yeah.
like if you're not a performer, then no one gives a shit.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you're hiring, there's some people who crush it in the interview process and then like they don't they don't do that well like after they join the team. And then there's others who are like amazing. They just deliver and they perform in terms of delivering outcomes well. But then in interviews, that's just not they don't really shine.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's some introverts. I'm going to
Yeah.
just put something out there. Like it might be some nerds. It might be
Ah, ah!
some. Uh, it might even be some Asians and
Could
Asian
be.
Americans.
Who knows?
So I mean, who knows? But one of the things
You
that
can compensate by doing well in school and getting good test scores.
um, yes, that's what we do. Oh, so when we were talking about being a performer, I think you know this about me, but I'd had to get in there and then compete and figure it out, and so I had to try and become a performer.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons now why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I feel like I've unlocked something that is very rare, which is okay. You just like stuck me in a crucible in a competitive environment, and I was like, all right, I got to figure out how to perform. And so now that I've done that, now I'm like, oh shit, like I really have to try and get us out of this mess because now I'm in like this very strange band of people
Yeah.
that actually can do the song and dance. And then you see something like Doug Burgum, it's like, oh shit, that guy can't do the song and dance yet.
He cannot.
like, oh no, would make a great leader, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally, totally. Robot Panda wants to know, do you think there's a new technology that'll affect the 2024 election that hasn't before, such as maybe TikTok, AI, or something else?
It's AI, man. I mean, like, I if there's one thing in the novel that I was talking to Steven that I think we might have missed. So I think we did a pretty good job predicting a lot of elements of what's going to go on in this next cycle. But I think we could have had AI play a bigger role. What I try and describe to people is, look, imagine a context where synthetic videos, audios, images, and texts all have zero cost. And then imagine campaigns and various actors just going hog wild. And then by the time you see a deep fake video, you're like, was that real? And then by the time you find out it is real, there's like another 6 videos. And you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm seeing. I think that down the stretch, the last week or two, we might be well served just turning off our social media feeds because there's going to be a lot of madness. I think that's what's going to happen in 2024.
Speaking of AI, in order to prepare for you coming on, I used a text-to-speech service to read your PDF, and I was able to select it in Barack Obama's voice. It was really convincing. And yeah, it's just amazing how far that technology has come. And
So you have Barack Obama reading the last election to you? Is that what you're saying?
I did. I did. I
How
admire
many
both of you, just so you know. You guys are
how many
my.
voices can you choose from?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of it. It's called Speechify. Snoop Dogg is another voice. So they have a bunch of like celebrities that I guess they've licensed it. I presume they've licensed it. I don't know.
You presume they licensed it. They just got fucking recordings. I don't think Snoop Dogg is getting shit for that. I don't think Barack Obama is getting shit.
Yeah, it's a startup. They're going fast, I'm guessing, and breaking things.
No, I mean, I'd be surprised if Snoop's getting money, but I want to
Yeah.
see the list of voices.
Yeah. I think it's called Speechify.
Premium AI voices. That's what I'm talking about. Hang on.
Yeah.
I want to see who they have, and also, what does it take to get me on there? All right.
Exactly. Although you gotta be careful because then people will type in like some crazy stuff and have you say it and then put it on Clubhouse.
It would be my privilege to say crazy shit.
Don't
I will
forget
be
to
hurt
subscribe
if
to Nerds
other
for Yang.
AI voices are saying crazy shit and it's not me.
That's when you know you've made it. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Last two questions. So this is more of a request. So Mike has been a long time Nerds for Humanity subscriber. He would like, is there a way that people can get a signed copy of your book? Like maybe make a donation or like how does that happen?
We can totally make that happen. Fuck. All right. Just for nerds listeners, check it out. Email my guy, JON at andrewyang.com.
Oh, poor John.
Let's get some requests, and then we'll bang them out at some point. So it might not happen, tomorrow, but it will happen over the next, I'm going to say like 10 days, something like that.
Oh, wow.
So just email John, JON at andrewyang.com and say, hey, I want a signed copy of his book and send the address, and then we'll take it from there. It's happy to help, really.
Love it. Make sure you mention Nerds for Humanity.
Oh, yeah, do that. You have to mention Nerds for Humanity.
All right, last question. Is Trumper for Yang? Remember Dennis, Trumper for Yang?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I'm going to accept your bet right now, Trumper for Yang. He wants to make a bet that he thinks that Trump will win in 2024. First of all, what's your view on the odds of that, and do you want to accept his bet?
I think that Dennis, unfortunately, has the odds on his side. I think there's like a greater than 50% chance that Trump does win. Now, would I still bet him $100 anyway? Sure, just because if Trump becomes president again, losing $100 to Dennis would be the least of my worries, and then I'd be like, oh shit, we're fucked, and I'd be like, oh, we're fucked minus $100. I mean, it's like, they're pretty close in my mind. But I think Dennis is a smart man. I think that right now, again, just on the face of it, you have two candidates neck and neck, and then you throw in Cornel West, RFK, and maybe Joe Manchin, and Trump probably wins.
But if you have a non-Biden at the top of the Democratic ticket, I think it's unlikely that Trump would win.
The odds of Trump winning go down in that instance because I think Joe is uniquely vulnerable on the basis of the fact that a lot of folks just see him as doddering, really. And there's like talk about confidence again. There's like a distinct lack of confidence on the part of the Democrats running Joe again. It's like, really, guys, you just don't think any fucking other person can be a better option? Like, your best and brightest, you can't figure that shit out? That stuff really, really makes me angry on the face of it. And they're just so fucking institutionalized, and they're going to feed us to Trump. So, Dennis, I think you've got logic on your side and some other things on your side, too. Though it sounds like Tom will take your bet. And so I'm very interested in...
Okay, so I'm thinking...
I'm very interested in the outcome of this bet.
All right, you will be the witness that I have accepted his bet.
Oh my gosh, it's on. I love it. I am your witness.
I have faith in the American people. I mean, the system's messed up, but Trump is really messed up. Now, I know Dennis is going to say my TDS is showing, which is probably true as well. Last question for you. What can people do to be helpful to the Forward Party and your efforts to try and unscrew America?
Well, thank you. Go to forwardparty.com and just sign up. The best thing you can do is be a recurring donor. It can be $1 a month. It can be $5 a month. It doesn't need to be like a huge dollar amount, but recurring donations are the best because then it just gets built in and, we're pumped and it it is relatively reliable. Go to andrewyang.com. You can keep up with me and my activities and events. But yeah, let's create the real movement, the real positive alternative. And then let's just grow, build, operate, do the thing. There's going to be a wind at our backs. There's a wind at our backs now, but there's a wind at our backs because I think that there's so many Americans that right now are desperate for a real alternative. And I really do not see many out there, honestly, guys. If you think about it, what else is there out there? No one else has taken on this party building endeavor because it's difficult and painstaking and laborious and expensive and time consuming. It is all of those things, by the way. But we're making awesome headway. I'm pumped about where we are at this stage where you could consider it either month 15 or month 22 or whatever the heck it is. So yeah, let's do it. Let's build our way out.
I love it. I want you to know I'm already a monthly contributor to Common Sense Party California. And so it sounds like there's more alliance work ahead with Forward Party and Common Sense. So I'll look forward to continuing to support.
Awesome, Tom. And I'll give you just a harbinger, yes. But there may be an alliance between Forward Party National and another independent party effort in another state, a relatively important political state. So that's what we do, man. We're like the national umbrella roll-up effort, and then sometimes there are activists on the ground who are we've been trying to do this ourselves for years, and you guys actually seem pretty reasonable and with it, and let's work together. So we're gonna have an announcement on that side pretty soon. See, isn't that exciting? Real shit. We'd go around doing real shit.
I love it. Real shit, man. Make it happen, Andrew. Thank you for coming on, and goodbye, nerds.
Bye, nerds. Appreciate the heck out of you. Read by AI.
And there's a link below to Amazon if you want to purchase the books, people. It's a good book. I recommend it. I was pleasantly surprised. It's good stuff.
Pleasantly surprised. Put that fucking blurb on the cover.
Yeah, put that on the back of the cover. See you later,
and again,
Andrew.
that email address is jon@andrewyang.com.
jon@andrewyang.com if you want to get the signed copy. I suggest you maybe try and make a donation to the Forward Party. You don't have to, but that'll be a nice gesture. See you guys later. Peace.
Goodbye, nerds. Later,
Bye,
Tom.
Nerds. See ya. All right, Andrew freaking Yang. Busy man, but he's always a pleasure to have on this show. I feel like it's always easy to have a conversation with him. Very reasonable, smart dude, positive, good sense of humor. If I had a daughter that was looking for a husband, someone like Andrew would be acceptable. All right, now let's go and thank the people who make this channel possible. And those are our channel members. And if you want to get a shout out on future shows, you too can become a member very easily by just clicking the join link on YouTube. Right now, our most senior member is Soldier One, 41 months of support. And by the way, I got news for you guys. We're going to have another major national guest on Nerds for Humanity. I think we're still working out the dates. It'll likely be early October. And they are a major national figure. So to all you members who kept this channel going, after the Yang campaign ended and I was just kind of plugging away, thank you. Because we're making more useful content for people. Kristen Slevin and Bike are vice presidents. So thank you, Kristen and Bike. And then next level down is Hardcore. Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Kirsch, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Mickey, Yoda, and Unkiyu. And then at the entry level, which is the verified, it's only $1.99 a month if you want to join, is Lisa, Brandon, Sophia, Doris, Emerald, Ben, Ira, Elizabeth, Shoni, Dr. William, Karen, Mai, Brittany, Lori, Juana, Kevin, T, Jeremy, David, Nicholas, Mike, Zig, Roberto, and Jackson. And I do want to say rest in peace, because I believe Elizabeth Norris, who had been a supporter for 3 years, recently unfortunately passed away to cancer. So positive energy to Elizabeth and her family. She's awesome. The other thing I want to share with you is we've made some improvements to ofthepeople.us, which is my kind of volunteer effort. You can think of it as like a Yelp for political candidates. So I'll give you a quick, this weekend, a bunch of our volunteers spent their weekend making some improvements to the site. And look, you can look at any candidate, you can sort them by potential POTUS candidates. You can sort by trending or all time in this case, or you could say, hey, I just want to see the Republicans. And then you can see who's got the most votes. And then what we added was under each candidate now, you can leave a review. So this is my review. And I'll blow it up. On Vivek Ramaswamy, I say there's no doubt Vivek is a smart dude. Problem is he strikes me as someone who will say anything, almost like a professional college debate team captain who can argue either side of an issue with great confidence and eloquence. The problem is authenticity, humility, and experience. So now you too can leave reviews on Of the People for any candidate you want. So in addition to clicking on the approve button for anyone, which then affects this ordering, you can now write and read reviews. So check it out, ofthepeople.us. With that, hope you all enjoyed this stream. If you can't become a member, there's something else you can do. Hit that like button and share it out, and then comment below on what questions you want me to ask our next guest. And I'm not supposed to tell you, but because it's not really fixed date, but if you made it this far into the stream, I feel like you deserve to know. So right now, I am in the process of scheduling. It's not, no, you never have a guest till they're on the stream. But I am in the process of scheduling an interview with Marianne Williamson in the Nerd Zone. So in the comments below, let me know if you have questions for Marianne that you want me to keep in mind, and I'll try and work it in. With that, goodbye, nerds.